SpecficMedia.com presents Beyond the Wall, a Game of Thrones podcast. With hosts Christiana Ellis, Chooch Schubert, Vivid Muse, and Nuchtchas. Hi everybody, welcome to Season 5 of Specfic Media presents Beyond the Wall. Tonight we're discussing Episode 5 of Game of Thrones, titled Sons of the Harpy, with no spoilers past the currently aired episodes. I'm Chooch, as always. I'm joined by Christiana.
Hello.
And Nuchtchas.
Hello, everyone.
Hey there. And unfortunately, we do not have Viv with us this evening. I was hoping to get her notes, but it doesn't look like I got that either. So we'll hear from her on this episode next time.
I'm sitting back from the camera because I have something going on with my back, so apologies for being farther away than usual. I hope you can hear me from here.
Still sound great. So, do we have any news bits?
I have one news bit, but it goes along with something that happened, so I'll just save it.
All right. Then maybe we'll just jump right in. Well, yeah, let's just jump right in. We have Dorne on the map.
Yes, finally, I cheered.
And did it live up to your expectations?
I liked it. It had the water gardens in a way that I kind of pictured them, so that worked. It's not very large, but that's okay. I didn't really know how big it was anyway, so.
That really struck me that, you have like King's Landing is just huge and all that, and then Dorne, and it only really shows one little city.
Yeah. You go from Bravos to Dorne, and Bravos is so huge and epic, and you got the coins rolling, and the Titan and everything, and then we go to Dorne, and it's like, splish splash. There's water. Yay.
Oh, we can't hear you, Christiana.
Oh.
Jeez. All right, sorry. That is really aggravating because, I'll sit here and I don't touch it, and nothing happens, and it just cuts out. But it's okay. It had the sun spear. That's what I was trying to say.
Yes. It did have the sun spirit, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool too.
Yeah. What I was going to say about it, though, is the only thing that had me rolling my eyes just a little bit is kind of what you just said, which was, Dorne is a whole, it is one of the 7 kingdoms. It's a whole region of the continent. It's not just one little city called Dorne.
Yeah.
So that was a little weird that way. And the only thing that I feel like maybe they wanted to save it for last in the credits, but I feel like by going over to Bravos and then Marine first and then back over to Dorne, it made it more confusing where Dorne is compared to the other Westeros cities. Which, nitpicky stuff, I'm just glad to have it on there, but I did notice those things.
Yeah, Dorne, if you think about Westeros in size at least, or at least the way that it is in my head, Dorne is a lot like the North, where it just takes up so much more of Westeros in space than the other kingdoms do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like Christiana said, the city is not called Dorne. It's the entire region is Dorne. But yeah.
Although it's also true that compared to the other kingdoms, it's like the North too, in the sense that a whole lot of it is not very densely populated.
Yeah. And there's things preventing people from accessing it freely,
Mountains
really
and desert.
Yeah.
Sand snakes.
And sure.
And sand snakes. Yay!
But Dorne has a snake.
Yeah, it has a couple.
Just a few.
Right in the credits though, we've got the one coiling up the spear, which is
that
fun.
Was really cool. I really did like that.
And we lose Mo Kalen, but we never understood why he had it in the first place, so that's okay.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that they're going to go back to Moat Kalen at some point later this season. That's the only thing that makes any sense to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was weird.
Either that or they just spent so much money on the one shot of showing Moat Kalen in the episode that they're like, well, shoot, I feel like people are not going to know where that is unless we put it in the credits. Well, I don't know.
This episode, we jump straight to Volantis, where Jorah steals a boat.
Mm-hmm. My first thought was to be critical and think, did you really need to punch out the fisherman, Jorah? But then I thought more about it, and I realized, you know what? It's ruthless, but savvy, because his whole thing is he knows that Tyrion could be recognized because that's what he did, right? So he needs not to have anybody know why. He needs to not have the fisherman go off and say, hey, some guy just, paid me a lot of money to bring a dwarf on a boat. And so we saw how well it works out when you let boat captains know what you're doing later in the episode.
And I do like that he tossed the guy some coins anyway. It was very clear he is not stealing this boat. He's buying it without your permission.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jorah's he's still got it in his head that he's going to be able to salvage this idea of being an honorable knight, which Tyrion mocks him for pretty mercilessly.
I love the Tyrion Jorah show. It's one of the things I was very excited to get to, because there's just something about two people who are just diametrically opposed.
Mm-hmm.
I hate you, you hate me.
I see Sheriff Bullock has a question saying, I thought Bolton said the North was larger than the other kingdoms combined. Also, hi, I wanted to get my jokes in before I had to scoot. I pulled up a map, so let's see, I can do the screen share real quick.
Right. Dorne would be
okay.
the second largest, though, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Could be wrong. It's all memory.
For some reason, I can't figure out the screen share. Oh, there it is. So, if you guys want to look at my, so are you seeing the map?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the North, obviously, really big, and then we've got the Vale area, the Riverlands, so we've got the various kingdoms, and you can see Dorne is pretty big. So maybe we overstated it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the North is also not bigger than all the others combined. It's maybe a third of Westeros if you don't count north of the Wall.
But everyone knows that they don't really understand math in Westeros, so it's all good. But I am very clearly wrong, because according to this map, the Reach is definitely bigger than Dorne. But we don't know. This map could have been made in the Reach, and we all know how xenophobic map makers can be. So.
Yeah, see, for some reason in my head, and this is totally not based on anything except vague recollections, I was thinking that this region was actually called something else.
I thought that region was part of Dorne. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Highgarden was kind of at the border.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, because this is Old Town where the Citadel is. That's where the Maesters get trained. And then.
Which makes sense, actually, because, yeah, I guess we did know that it was in the Reach.
Yeah, and this is where the Iron Islands are, and then of course over here is Essos, where Marine and Bravos and all are.
So for those of you not watching the video, that was very boring. But we had a map.
Well, and anyone can just Google Westeros map, and I think you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then Chooch started singing the song that I always have in my head when I say we have a map. Yes.
Did I?
Didn't you?
Thank you.
I didn't hear anything.
Maybe I just heard it in my head and I thought Chooch was singing it.
How does it go?
It's the map.
Well, you have to sing it.
It's the map. It's from Dora the Explorer.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry, Chooch. You'll get very familiar with Dora the Explorer in about a year or two.
Some new evil thing will come on. So later on they have a scene and have their conversation.
Yeah. Not a lot to it this early, though, other than, general sense of Jorah's being rough with Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
I do love that later scene, though.
Yeah.
Are we going character by character, or are we going in chronological order?
I think it goes mostly chronological.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Tyrion and Jorah here is the exception. I think everything else kind of happens in order.
Mm-hmm. And after, actually we start on the ocean to Dorne when Jaime sees Sapphire Isle.
Yeah, we do get two scenes of Bronn and Jaime. Yeah, go ahead, Nutty.
It had to be fan service, but Jaime looking, oh, is that whatever? And it's like, oh no, that's Tarth, the Sapphire Islands, and he just had this look of longing, like, I wonder what Brienne's doing right about now.
Well, I thought, like, not only just that, but just specifically the memory of the whole bit about, it's because there's sapphires there, was the whole thing that led to him losing his hand. So it wasn't even just Brienne memory. It was a very specific evening.
And anytime I hear the Sapphire Islands, I think of the book because Vargo Hoat has a very bad lisp, and he says Sapphires. And so every time I hear the Sapphire Islands, it's like the Sapphire Islands. Silence, Kingslayer.
We have so their conversation. Jaime, Bronn seems to be pumping Jaime a little for secrets, or just bored.
Well, I think he's also he's kind of at that point where he knows enough of Jaime's real secrets that the ones that he's pretty sure of, and yet Jaime seems oddly insistent on not making explicit. He's just kind of like, really? Niece? Okay then, whatever. But I like too that he's kind of like, hey, I'm a sellsword. I'll go where you pay me to go. But you ever think how this plan's kind of dumb?
I like how daring Bronn is. Like the fact that he has the audacity to speak to the head of the Kingsguard, the uncle of the king, and to actually go, niece, like, really, he could still just kill you for that, and he would be well within his rights. And it just shows how many stones Bronn has. Like, he really doesn't care.
Well, he's also at the point of, it's like, I'm the one that you already trusted enough to try to train you to fight, and I'm the one that knows that you suck now.
True.
The other interesting detail, though, I think, is this was the first time we really got probably honest Jaime's feeling about how he actually feels about Tyrion now.
Yes. That was huge to me because that's something it's not really addressed in the books, I don't think. I mean,
sure. Not as bluntly as this.
Yeah,
certainly.
like I know there's chapters where Cersei's viewing him, and so you get her take on things. And I know that we've got some chapters from Jaime afterwards, but his main focus isn't really Tyrion, it's other things. So you don't really get to see, well, what does he really feel about Tyrion now, and what would he do if he saw him again?
Yeah.
Like, I still hold out hope that they can have that friendship that they had, but when I watch this, I'm like, yeah, no, that really can't happen.
Well, see, the way I think of it though is that just the nature of what Jamie's like and his personality. I mean, he's mad, especially because it's not like he had a great relationship with Tywin either, but it obviously puts their whole family in a really tough spot. And also, Jamie's got to be feeling a little bit like, dude, I helped you escape, and this is how you
Yeah.
repay me?
Yeah.
But I can't help but think if they were really face to face, like that's how Jamie feels now. I don't think he would be able to hold to that if they really met up again.
And I think it kind of depends on how things turn out, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think there was any love lost for Tywin, but he's more mad, like you said, that he released him and he did it, and it just kind of fucked all their other plans. So, and
Mm-hmm.
Cersei's pissed off again, so he thought he was getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well, it was complicated, even his relationship with Tywin. Like, there's kind of a love-hate thing there. Like, as much as he resents the way Tywin treats him and acts, that there was always a part of him that still felt like someday I'm going to do something to make you proud of me.
Mm-hmm.
And now he can't.
Yeah.
But again, I think if actually they came face to face again, I think Jamie's feelings would change. Not like on a dime necessarily, but I also don't think he would just, swing the sword, no questions asked.
Yeah. Let's jump over to King's Landing. We have the small council.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Banks wanting to get paid.
Yeah.
So they're struggling.
Just before we move on, Mike McCauley has your back, Nutty. He says, I was singing that map song in my head too. Don't feel bad.
I don't. Anyone who's been around kids of a certain age, it's there.
But the interesting thing with the news about the Iron Bank and then them demanding some of what they're owed. What we have to remember too is that they have now, as far as they didn't make it super explicit what happened, but they have now funded Stannis with the express intent that he will be able to pay that back because he's going to take over Westeros.
Mm-hmm.
And so this whole thing of this idea that Tyrell's going to be able to go and negotiate better terms is not likely, because this whole idea of 10% of what is owed, that's just like going to be the first volley of like, okay, we're going to hamstring you guys now so that our other investment actually starts to pay off, and we hope we can actually get what we can out of you before Stannis comes in.
Yep.
Although
real offering to double down and put more in, Cersei immediately shut him down, saying, no, you should go talk to him, and Meryn's going to go with you. And I'm thinking, he's not going to make it to the bank.
Well, I don't know. That's it. It's hard to know, because Meryn is certainly her dirty work guy.
Yeah, but I mean, they're fucked. They don't have money. They can't pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it could just be a stalling tactic and just get him out of her hair.
Well, I think that's kind of where Cersei's head is at in this episode, is it's all short-sighted. She is so hyper-focused on taking Marjorie's support structure away that she is making all sorts of short-sighted decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That even ones that really undercut the things that in principle she holds most dear. Like this one isn't that so much, but like some of what she does with Tommen and the Faith Militant later, like she puts Tommen in a position to look really weak and theoretically even to be in physical danger because she's so focused on hurting Marjorie.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say, show Cersei's a lot smarter than book Cersei, because book Cersei is like, we don't have to pay them back. We're a country. we're done. We don't have to pay back the Iron Bank. And so at least this is a bit smarter. And in the book, she sent somebody else, but she sent the men that were following Sir Gregor around with that person, which is a little more dubious than sending Sir Meryn Trent. Unless you know what we know about Sir Meryn Trent, then that actually looks like a nice gesture, and Mace is so clearly fooled by it.
Well, and I don't know what they're planning to do.
Yeah.
Because again, this is different than how it worked out. But what we also have to just remember is Meryn Trent will now be going to Braavos.
Yep.
And he is one of the names on Arya's list.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I was like, ooh, that's kind of nice. I have some theories what might happen.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, no, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, so she's totally flattering him, like, oh, you're so important, you're going to be the one to talk him into it, and I'm going to send Meryn Trent, cue creepy music, in for him to come in glowering, and then Earl's like, my very own Kingsguard, I'm honored, and she's like, yeah, no.
And well, it just goes to show, by the way, what a bad master of coin he is. He's like, oh, I'll just put my own money into it. Dude, that's not how you work as an accountant. You don't pay off the boss's bills with your own money.
What I loved about the way he said it, though, is it's like, and if the queen were to not pay us back, I would have a stern word with my daughter. And he thinks he's being all funny, and Cersei's just like, you son of a bitch, you still don't even know who you're talking to.
I love how many times he tried to make a joke and no one laughed. There's like 3 separate times he thinks he's making a joke and everyone's just like, okay, moving on.
And
Must be really pleasant in his world. I'd like to live there for a little while.
My favorite bit of that whole scene, though, was the end when he bustles off, and then like the only people left at the table are Pycelle and Qyburn. And Pycelle's like, the small council grows smaller and smaller. And she's like, not small enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Pycelle. He spent so long just sucking up to them, and now she doesn't even like him anymore.
Yeah. I have no pity for that man.
So we head into Cersei's office. It looks like Littlefinger's response is on the table. I'm really dying to see what it says.
Well, I mean, at the very least, we see from later that he does seem to be planning to go to King's Landing.
Mm-hmm.
So he, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it sounds like what his response would be was probably, I'll be right there.
And presumably Roose Bolton read it.
Yeah.
He'd like to see it. So,
that's true.
Peter, you never know. So Cersei is going to arm the High Sparrow's men, and they immediately start clamping down on sinners.
Yeah. So, Nutty, maybe you remember this better than I do in the book, but was it Cersei's idea in the book? I thought they asked her if they could do it.
Basically what happened was the Faith asked Cersei to militarize, to give them their militia, and in return they would cancel out the debt that the crown had with the Faith. So that actually took care of some of the crown's debt, and so basically they bought it. Whereas in the show, Cersei's like, oh no, this is, I want to do this, and she has a very significant goal in mind. The Faith are so different in the show. Like, for instance, the whole thing about, the sins that they seem to be obsessed with here, drinking, whoring, homosexuality, worshiping gods other than the 7, these are the sins, what they would say, of the common folk, and that wasn't important to them at all. And Martin has even gone on record as saying, yeah, they don't really think of homosexuality as like a big sin. It's not the big deal. And so they're so different, and the fact that there's this homophobic storyline in here is, I don't want to, well, it may be it seems unsettling to me now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they're going to implement it, but I don't know. I just feel like it's too in line with what's going on in life, that crazy fanatics go after gay people.
Well, I liked that about it because on the one hand, the fact that Loris is gay is a much bigger part in the show than it ever was in the books, and so I think it's an opportunity to send the code to us of how scary these guys are, and the show wants us to be uncomfortable with them, I think.
Yeah.
And it works, in my opinion.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know anything about them from the books, but hearing you, it seems like it's a shortcut. That
Yeah.
You immediately have an image of what they are and what they're about, and it's easy for them to have planted Marjorie saying, you're not even trying to hide it anymore, to lead into what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to just have the whole issue be a little bit more prominent, and also I think, like I said, they're definitely playing up like the creepy angle in the show compared to in the books. Like in the books, I think there was almost more emphasis on like the more positive side of some of it, in the sense that there really are a lot of common folk that are really suffering, and the actual intent of this was really to protect them. And so there are darker implications of some of that, of just, essentially giving an army to a new power that hasn't existed in a long time. It upsets the political structure. But I feel like there wasn't in the book as much emphasis on, these guys, I don't know. But I thought it was interesting, too, just the scene that we got with the High Sparrow this time. Almost like I was feeling like I didn't trust him last time. But this one almost makes him seem like he's more reasonable, because it wasn't his idea, and he's like, I wouldn't have even asked for this. But then what happens as soon as they get weapons is they're cutting shapes in their forehead and killing people.
Yeah.
And smashing beer kegs in the street and beating up merchants and raiding brothels. I mean...
Oh, yes, and we get our new favorite sex position. I've got the sound clip is ineffective.
This is Lord Peter Bellish's establishment.
That line didn't do me any good last time.
Well, I thought it was... it worked fine, but it was interesting just on two minor levels. One, which was, I guess he does technically still own it. He didn't transfer it or sell it or something when he left King's Landing. But two, it's also, I think, a reminder. We're hearing later that he's actually coming there, but it's probably just sort of a plot coupon that's part of what he's going to have to deal with when he shows up.
Yeah, and I meant, not getting any respect, because it was the exact same line. This is Peter Baelish's establishment. Like, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. Technically, people don't actually respect Littlefinger very much.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not there, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got better things to be doing, apparently. But sorry, go ahead.
Tommen's chambers, Marjorie's pissed off.
Yeah.
Tommen's in the meat grinder.
Well, and this is where I think we see how Marjorie was far too quick to switch to gloat mode in the last couple of episodes. Now, that said, I don't think she could have foreseen how self-destructive Cersei would be in her dogged attempts to hurt Marjorie at any cost. Because, gosh, giving a lot of crazy, fanatical, religious, culty people, including one of them who knows all of this stuff that she has done, yeah, let's give them all weapons. I'm sure that won't have any long-term consequences.
Right.
Just so that she can get Loris arrested. And then, of course, not dealing seriously with the Iron Bank just so she can get Tyrell out of town. Like, I think Marjorie could not have anticipated how extreme Cersei was going to be in trying to tear her support structure away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like it because you can see, well, Marjorie is learning how to play the game. She has not mastered it like her grandmother, and she cracks. And you can see her go, well, and she's trying to get back into it, but she's having a really hard time.
Yeah, at first she comes in and she's kind of all in this mode of like wanting to treat Tommen like he's an adult, and then she's coming in and is like, "What are you going to do about this?" And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, "Oh, right, shit. Oh, darling, I just, it hurts me so."
I could set a V for you, and in my head is the next line's going to be, Mom, how do I set prisoners free?
Yeah, well, because I think what she's recognizing here is that this is happening too quickly, and Tommen is not at a point yet where he can stand up to his mom. I think she assumed too quickly that Cersei was just going to leave, and then that was it. But she didn't, and this is happening now. And I loved too that she decided she needs to phone a friend, send word to her grandmother.
Yeah.
I can only hope that means we get to see Olenna again.
I hope so.
Yeah, I would think this is like you said, unprecedented, unthought of.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tommen charges in, demands his release, and but I didn't arrest him, and you just feel for the kid. She gives him the equivalent of finding a breastplate stretcher.
Yeah. Well, that was almost more than anything else in this episode. I felt like that was the indication that she is really off the deep end here in her pursuit of vengeance against Marjorie, because ostensibly her whole deal is wanting to protect her kids. Like, that's the only reason, supposedly, that she hates Marjorie, is she thinks Marjorie's going to take Tommen away from her. And yet, what does she do to Tommen here? Not only does she undercut him personally, which is fine because she wants to be able to control him, but she sends him off to look weak in front of this new army she has just created and his own Kingsguard simultaneously.
Right.
Plus the not impossible risk that he could actually be hurt in something like that happening. And not only that, but Tommen's standing out there and people are yelling that he's a bastard and an abomination. Like there's no upside to any of that, and Cersei put him in that position on purpose, just so that she wouldn't have to give into his, she, instead of making the point of, here's why I'm not going to do what you're asking, she makes him feel like he's failing, which is going to undercut him.
I don't think she realized that people were going to call him a bastard. I'm definitely going to give her benefit of the doubt on that one. Yeah. And I think this is really the first time Tommen's even heard that. Heard anyone actually say that. Because remember, he's just been completely protected, so he's completely caught off guard. And then when the one Kingsguard is like, no, we could kill him for you. What? No. And you can see that he's realizing, okay, my decisions have a very, very big influence on what's going to happen here. I do think that Cersei wanted him to fail so that he would cling to her and say, Mommy, do this for me. But she didn't think it through. She did not. Yeah.
I agree she wanted him to fail, but I think she underestimated that makes Tommen look weak in front of a lot of people that we don't want him to look weak in front of for his own long-term benefit. Tim Dodge says Joffrey would have had someone beheaded for this. I think
Yeah.
I think he's right. Well, but I also just think it's like when the Gold Cloak said he want us to take care of him for you, and he would say, "Yes, please do it."
Mm-hmm.
Although, of course, he would have never gone after Joffrey or Loras in the first place.
No, Joffrey would have beheaded Loras.
Yeah.
It's like you're telling me what to do. I behead
He's
your
like,
brother.
oh, they arrested him because he's gay. Good. You know, like there was that whole scene where like he had talked about that with Marjorie, and she had to kind of, well, that's one way to go.
Right.
But yeah, so it's just one of those things. Like this whole arc from the book too is just like it's amazing because it just Cersei spends a lot of time and effort just tossing as many running chainsaws up into the air, just figuring that she'll start juggling them later once they start coming down. She's going to just keep tossing more up there. It's just, we'll see how it plays out. But boy, she's putting a lot of things at risk.
Yeah, and somewhere in her brain, she has to know this isn't sustainable. So.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. It's like I feel like she's just so focused on Marjorie right now because she thinks maybe she's got this prophecy in the back of her mind. She thinks Marjorie's going to take everything from her. She's worried her kids are going to die, but like it's all just transferred to she just hates Marjorie so much. You know, it's just flames on the side of her face. Like so she is just not thinking long term at all. It is just all about hurting Marjorie right now, I think. And she just figures, I'll deal with the rest of that later.
My guess is she's gonna do this flail out, all kinds of damage. Jaime shows back up with their daughter, and she'll grab Tommen in a chest of gold, and they'll ride off to the sunset, or I don't know. Probably not. She's probably too unstable to have that as a vision.
Well, you know, we'll have to talk a little bit more about her and Jaime when we talk about the Jaime and Bronn scene later, because there's a little bit more discussion there.
Yeah.
So do we?
Sweet boy doesn't want anyone to get hurt. Goes back. Marjorie's, cuts him off. If only he had an uncle to talk to.
Yeah.
All right.
You know who could help him with this situation? Tyrion.
Yeah.
Tyrion is really like, he should have been the uncle that the kids went to for advice. You know, you are good with strategy. You understand how the world works. You will give me advice without trying to control me.
Mm-hmm.
Tywin would give you advice, but that's to serve his needs, not the realm's.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's like that speech over Joffrey's body that Tywin gave Tommen last season. It was basically like, let's have a lesson on what a good king is, and the end of the lesson is that a good king is one who does what I tell him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Marjorie leaves. She mentioned sending word to her grandmother, but then she also leaves the room saying she needs to be with her family.
Right.
Does that mean that she's going somewhere too, or do we think she's just going to try to call Olenna to King's Landing?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I think she's cutting them off. She's taking away the carrot and needed a quick, plausible reason. Oh, I'm bereft.
I think, she's definitely sending word, but let's not forget that most of those her ladies in waiting are her relatives. When she introduces Sansa around, she introduces how most of them are cousins. So she's got a lot of family in King's Landing with her. And all those giggly girls that were with her last episode talking about, Tommen's stamina, that is her family. So she can, just retreat to that. And when she walked into Tommen's room, it definitely felt like Tommen's room, not their room.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get the impression she was leaving King's Landing, but leaving him.
Well, I think there was an element of what it just made me think of is how, okay, maybe all of the ladies in waiting are her cousins, but I mean, from the show perspective, in terms of establishing who is her family, it's Loras, it's Mace Tyrell, and it's Olenna. Olenna's not there, at least not yet. Mace just got sent off to Bravos, and Loras just got arrested. So I think it was almost just to kind of highlight, was like, Cersei has really just stripped all of her main allies away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Tommen is, unfortunately, even when on her side, is not up to the task.
And getting punished for it. Because she's definitely punishing him by removing herself from him.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely. But I think it's also just like, not that accomplishes anything either, because I think she's just realized that it doesn't matter if he's trying or not, because Cersei is not going to listen to him.
Yeah.
Let's jump up to Castle Black. In the courtyard, we have Stannis and his wife, who I just forget her name.
Selyse.
Selyse. Talking about Jon's mother, reminding us we don't really know who his mom is, do we?
Yeah, that was kind of an out of nowhere mention.
I loved it. There was
a lot of stuff mentioned in this episode that we haven't heard about in a while, and I thought that was really interesting. And we don't need to say too much about it, except that I feel like there's some code going on. But yeah, just this idea of Selyse saying, "Oh, he's just a bastard, spawned of a tavern wench," and Stannis is like, I don't know.
That wasn't Ned Stark's way.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
And it brings back the idea that most people have a genuine mistrust of bastards. That if you are in this society, if you are born a bastard, you have a genetic mistrust in you. That you're likely to be dishonorable, not what you seem. Stupid superstition, but it's what a lot of the people believe. Which is why Alistair Thorne never liked Jon, because he was a bastard. Well, a highborn bastard.
Yeah.
Then we have Melisandre saying, "So, last time you listened to Davos and left me behind, you're not going to make that mistake again, right?" It's like, "No, I need you there." And then she's like, "Well, no, you don't need me. You just need Faith."
Yeah. She's definitely, I felt like she's jerking him around a little bit there, too. Just checking in, make sure you're still listening to me. Good. Okay.
Is it this scene that she mentions Serene's royal blood? One of the scenes she mentions how Shireen, the daughter. Sorry.
Does she? I didn't remember hearing that.
I thought there was one point where she mentions it. Maybe I'm just missing it.
Because she really only talks to Stannis in that scene about whether he's going to take her south to Winterfell or not. And then she doesn't really have another scene with Stannis. I don't think she would have said that to Jon.
Okay. Then maybe I'm just remembering from another episode or something. Sorry.
It sounds kind of familiar. I think it might have been
probably another episode.
Well, Stannis talks about how she is Princess Shireen.
Yes.
His blood. I mean, Melisandre doesn't, but he talks about it.
Okay.
Not in the royal blood, you have power sort of sense, but Melisandre says that to Jon. And so you may just be blending those elements.
That may be what it is.
But yeah, so in any case, there's not a whole lot to that scene with Melisandre and Stannis. It's more just kind of like reminding us, the audience, that he's going to be leaving for Winterfell soon, and raising that very valid question of, well, what's the plan? What are they doing? Is she going to go with him? What's going on?
Yeah. And she needs to get bacon if they're going to leave in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like too that they're subtly building in, because we've been talking about winter coming for since season 1, but just the kind of the subtlety of it's really kind of dreary and overcast and snowing there at Castle Black. Later, Littlefinger talks about how they're gonna have to do it soon if they don't want winter snows to block them.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's going to start being a factor.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jumped into John's office.
Yeah.
And, I like, so she's coming on to him, and he's, I made a vow, and gives him the eyebrow.
Let's not skip over John and Sam, though. Sam, handing him all these things to sign, but then that whole thing of, I'm so Lady Horwood and Smallwoods and this guy and that guy, and I'm not going to say the name on this last one. And so obviously, it's just an example of John having to struggle a little bit with this. Is he Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, or is he Jon Snow, son of Ned Stark?
Yeah.
Yeah. How easy is it to stay above the politics of the realm? You're not going to accept the help you desperately need.
Yeah.
I like that whole conversation between the two of them. You've got his inner turmoil. Sam is definitely guiding him the way that a good advisor would, and explaining reason to him, which is wonderful. In the book, it's him asking for help from King Tommen, not Bolton. So it's, their family killed my brother, but it was a little more like removed, whereas this is a lot more visceral, I feel. So I kind of like that switch, because and it's not just you're asking this family, you're addressing them as the Warden of the North. So that's a knife in the heart and a twist.
Yeah.
Because you're recognizing them as the house that owns Winterfell.
I think in the books they had established that the Boltons were actually a little bit resource light at this point. Like, they had done a lot of stuff, but now they kind of needed to just hunker down for a while.
Yeah.
Because they had covered a lot of ground taking out the Iron Men, but they were not...
Well, I don't think they were as solidified in Winterfell at this point either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they were still on their way there.
Yeah, so in any case, though, I also just thought it was, Sam is, he knows Jon, and he's trying to make this easy but still getting the job done, and so just the whole element of he saves that one for last, just because in case Jon blows up and doesn't want to sign it, well, at least we got all the other ones done, and then we get those off and revisit the hard one.
It's good thinking.
Sam's awesome.
Yeah. It is interesting too, just because although like they're blending the timelines a little bit, but Sam had been given a different task to accomplish at this point in the books.
Yes.
It's not clear if they're going to do that at all in the show. They have not given us any clue to it, and one of the primary reasons for it in the books is not in the show at all either. So maybe it's just not even going to happen.
And I feel like they're dropping seeds, but I don't really want to talk about what's not happening.
Right.
But it is definitely interesting what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I was not too keen on the Red Woman trying to seduce Jon. It just seems so like, I'm naked. Of course you want me. It was just like she was pulling the naked guy,
Yeah.
I
has not read him well.
No, she didn't read, and I feel like the character should know better.
That's a hard thing to discuss.
Unless she didn't want to be successful.
Well, the thing, I don't think it's that as much as she's not in a hurry. She's kind of putting it out there, and hey, if it works right away, then we're good to go. Otherwise, just like, well, you know where I'll be.
I hated everything
Easy
about
for you
this
to say
scene.
no now, but what about late tonight when you're alone in your bed? Or you gonna maybe
You gonna snuggle up with Ghost, or you gonna snuggle up with me? Yeah. Maybe Sam. I really wasn't enjoying this scene. I'm so happy that he did resist her. I was so afraid they were gonna make another choice, and I was just angry. And then as she's leaving the room, and she says, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," I'm like, okay, wait, that scene's not so bad. Because it gave us that.
Yeah, it was spooky.
There's an element of this that I have opinions about, but it's probably too spoilery.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Mike McCauley in the Q&A just says, I'm thinking there will be consequences for her being rejected by Jon. That's maybe true, but my read on her as she left was not, you'll pay for this, Jon Snow. It was more like, there's still time, It's like, no right now means no right now.
I feel like there will be
no
repercussions
later.
if Stannis ever finds out. Even with the rejection, he won't be pleased. I think we have more to fear from Stannis.
Yeah, because the whole thing with Stannis, it's not even like it's not like a love jealousy, but it's this whole thing of he's thinking like she's all over me because she thinks I'm this prophet that's going to save the world, right? It's the chosen of the Lord of Light. So what's she doing over there?
Yeah, it's not a romantic love. That's for sure.
I don't think he really even likes her much.
Yeah,
it's more like he is.
Agree.
She clearly has power, and he is up for that. I mean, it's like this is a couple seasons back now, but it's goes back to his argument with Davos about use of magic, and he's basically saying the Targaryens had dragons. How is it different?
Yep. I also like, just thinking about it, how everyone in Westeros, if they need to explain why they're doing something wrong, if they need an excuse, they always say, well, the Targaryens did it.
Yeah.
There's no problem with me sleeping with my brother. The Targaryens did it all the time. I can use magic. The Targaryens did it. The Targaryens did, Oh,
yeah, and everyone loved the Targaryens. That's why there's so many. Oh, wait.
Wacky Mad King.
Mad King.
And so next scene, Stannis Baratheon, Father of the Year.
Yeah.
Yes, I love this scene.
Yeah. Oh man, I really like all the stuff they're doing with Shireen in the show.
Yes.
She's so much like she's generic kid with stuff on her face in the books. Yeah. But she's an actual character in the show, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, the only depth you get from Shireen is that Davos really cares about her.
Well, and of course her Patchface is her her fool, and and he's around to say creepy things.
Yeah, well, there's that too. and so most of your opinion of Shireen is all based on what other people say and other people think about her. She doesn't have that much. Whereas in the show, she not only did she teach Davos to read, but she loves teaching people to read. She'll teach anyone to read. She likes to talk to people, and I just feel so bad, how her mom has treated her. Yeah. And then Stannis tells this whole story, which is so good. So nice.
Plus, it is another hint of grayscale as a thing. It's the show has taken a couple of steps so far this season to remind us that grayscale is a thing. My guess is it's something else is going to come from that. They're not bringing it up again just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
I don't know what that will be necessarily, but
they talk about sending her to live with the Stonemen and Volantis and
Valyria.
Valyria, sorry, not Volantis. That's anyway.
Yeah.
Other
Mhm.
from. It starts with a V.
So he mentions the doll, I guess, how she got it, and I
Yep.
took that to mean like this is just helping us along. This is the disease vector,
Mhm.
not necessarily she was poisoned or
Right.
targeted.
The only thing that
Oh, it's weird.
Well, yeah, the thing that the only I felt like this was not an intentional detail, but what was weird about it is this idea that he said we burned the doll, but it was too late, and I'm thinking, well, like, how did you know to burn the doll?
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did you ever find out that it was the doll? I mean, like that's. Although it could just be that they left out some of the details there, like, okay, it's this trader from Dorne, he was selling the doll, and we gave it to Shireen, but later we found out that he had grayscale, and so we went and tried to burn everything that he had sold, and we burned the doll, but it was too late. And it just, so it could have been that, and they just left out that part of how they figured out that it was the doll and that sort of thing. But they did leave out that detail, which made me think, what?
Because he did say something like, well, maybe they thought a new father would be an easy target, which could be for a merchant or could be for a poisoner or, I don't know.
I thought it was just a sweetheart line of, guess he just thought a new father would be an easy target. So I bought it for you.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. It's
Right.
like this idea of, he was right, I was an easy target because I love you.
An easy target.
Yeah, and so I liked that about it.
How her face would light up when she held the doll, and then you see Shireen just like, oh my God, my dad liked seeing me happy. And
Yeah.
I like Sheriff Bullock's comment in the Q&A. He says, when Stannis becomes king, I hope he makes Shireen master of young adult literature and after-school tutoring. That is a great master job.
Yes. And then of course the end of the scene is just a big old aww. She hugs him and he's like, I does not compute. Okay, well, hands on shoulders. I love you too, pat pat.
You know what? I think I know why I got confused with the whole royal blood thing. I'm just remembering. It's when Selyse says, I wish I could have bore you a son, and he's like, you bore me a daughter. She is the royal, and that's when Melisandre comes in and says that she's the royal heir. Yeah. And it doesn't matter that she's not a boy; she's still the royal heir. Because remember, we are in a patriarchal society here. So the idea that the Lord of Light is saying, yeah, it can go to Shireen. Kind of a big deal.
See, I feel like, I don't know, I don't want to rule out something that the show might decide to do, but I just sort of feel like Melisandre's got to know better than to mess with Shireen. Because, like, she knows Stannis is not really that into her. You know what I mean? Like, so I think she has to know that I think doing something to Shireen would be a deal breaker.
I don't think she wants to do anything to Shireen. I really think that she's keen on this idea of having a female heir.
I think, if anything, they may be setting up that Selyse would do something to Shireen.
That could be.
Yeah.
That's definitely not. She's a little crazy. Remember the jar babies?
Yeah.
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 Jar babies.
Never
trust anyone with jar babies.
All of that is
speculation,
by the way, so we're not spoiling anything there.
Yeah, this is all speculation. And I like what Chooch said, she would get along well with Qyburn.
Yeah.
I bet Qyburn's like there on like Westeros Kijiji trying to get wholesale prices on some jar babies. Oh, hey, this person at Dragonstone, they're unloading a bunch of jar babies. Awesome. All right.
Mint in jar.
Mint in
Actually, I think by definition, if it's in a jar, it's probably not in mint condition.
Well, if you sprinkle some mint in, then it's minty.
Let's travel south a little to Winterfell. The crypts of Winterfell.
Yeah.
Get another Rhaegar story.
Yeah, and the
Why-
notable,
No.
the interesting detail. First of all, is it the first time we've gotten the story of Rhaegar giving the flowers to Lyanna in the
In
show?
the show, yes.
Yeah. And the interesting moment where Sansa goes, and then he kidnapped and raped her, and Littlefinger kind of does a
Mm,
like, just fine. It's fine.
whatever. Details.
Yeah.
None of these people are alive.
We don't need to get into it right now. It's not part of your narrative.
I like that she found the feather.
Yeah.
That was kind of neat.
Do you if people don't remember the feather, I actually didn't pick up on this until I saw someone else tweet about it. It's the feather that King Robert put there in the very first episode of the show when he went down to visit the crypt when they were there at Winterfell.
If you
That
watch
was
the
one of the-
previously on,
Yeah.
they showed that.
Oh, did they? Okay, I see. I didn't even. I guess I didn't even pick that up.
Now that I'm watching on HBO now, I get the previously on, and I get the next episode, and I get a little bit afterwards where the directors are talking about the episode, so I get like all
Mhm.
this extra stuff that I didn't get before, and it's kind of funny because like I'm watching the previously on, and they show that scene, I'm like, why are they showing that scene? Okay, something's gonna have to happen in the crypt, and then when she pulls the feather, I'm like, oh wow. Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, that's why we got the scene of the feather.
Yeah. So Littlefinger's plan is a lot more straightforward than I expected, and yet that's to its benefit, I think.
Mhm.
Because I was feeling last time like I don't understand what's in it for him, but now it's just kind of like, okay, listen, we think what's most likely to happen is that Stannis is going to come south and take Winterfell, and then you're in prime position. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay. And then he's thinking, and even if that doesn't happen, then you just have to work your wiles on him. And, I think he may be underestimating what kind of wiles Ramsay is into.
Yeah, he has no clue what Ramsay's doing, which
Yeah.
it seems he doesn't.
Or I think he thinks Sansa's up to it.
Well, I also think he overestimates her because of the effect she has on him.
Could be too. We also got the kiss on the lips.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah. And then that whole bit of like he's about to leave and she's like, by the time you get back, I'll be a married woman. And then there's that just moment of both of them going, yeah, okay, I gotta go. Sorry.
Yeah, with the creepy kiss, that's what I'm figuring. So he lays out, like you say, a very clear plan, and I'm thinking it's Peter, so he's telling Sansa what he wants Sansa to know.
Yeah, the one
Really
trick. Yeah, I guess he could sell it. I was just gonna say is I can't imagine that Stannis is a big Littlefinger fan.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I don't know. I think you would absolutely need Sansa, and if Littlefinger just sort of sidles up there and says, I am her uncle by marriage now. We're a package deal. He's not going to turn Sansa away, right? And if Sansa says no, Littlefinger stays, then So that might be what he's counting on.
I think that if Stannis takes Winterfell, then Sansa is fine. Like her fear of, well, what if he's not fine with me being here? He'll be fine with it. I don't think he's going to do anything to her. He may make her pay for agreeing to marry a Bolton, but I don't think she's going to lose her fingers. So.
Yeah, I think they know she wouldn't have any choice in that.
Well, and I think it's also a matter of Littlefinger's right that it almost doesn't even matter whether he's mad at her. They need her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is way too valuable as a way to unite the North under a daughter of Ned Stark. She's way too important that no matter what he might feel about her privately, there's no way he would allow her to be harmed, or really, having her stay exactly where she is exactly what he would need to have happen.
So far as anyone knows, Sansa is the only living Stark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since we can't count Jon Snow, because
No.
that's because now that Jon has turned Stannis down, Sansa really is his only option.
Yeah.
But the other thing, when we think about this plan, it's valuable to reflect back a couple of seasons and remember the last time that Sansa made a decision based on assuming that Stannis was going to capture somewhere and she would be fine.
Oh, she should have gone with the Hound. Oh, Sansa, you stupid. And that involved a possible kiss, too.
Yeah. And I think it's, not that it turned out well for her there in King's Landing, but I think as far as just playing the odds, I'm not sure she made the wrong decision from that perspective.
You don't know how things would have happened had she been with Sandor. Would he have been taken by the Brotherhood without banners if he had her to look after? Would he have gotten as drunk as he did if he didn't have her to look after? And when he found Arya, the fact that Arya and Sansa would have been together, that would have been a whole new dynamic. I mean, there's a lot of things that would be very different.
But I feel like they wouldn't have found Arya because they would have headed straight for the Eyrie.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have gone that way.
Well, again, and I don't think that he would have been captured by the brothers without
and
banners.
it's impossible to know what would have happened, but my point is just that hanging out with the Hound didn't necessarily turn out great for Arya, who tried it.
True.
So.
And then all the Sansan fans are screaming in my ear saying, well, no, they would have just disappeared and gone off to live happily ever after.
Well, also the element of if she had left then, she was still supposed to be queen at that point. She was still supposed to marry Joffrey. And so if they had left, that screws a lot of stuff up. They would definitely be looking for her. Not that they're not looking for her now, but just the idea of being on the road with Sandor is different than being specifically hidden by Littlefinger, who's good at it.
True.
Right.
True. Although we could speculate all night, but I wonder if they might have just made the same argument that they're making for Arya, that, she's dead. Nobody's seen her, she's dead. She died in the sacking of King's Landing.
Yeah.
Then she'd have to prove who she was if she does surface. Because that's the whole thing. If Arya decides to surface, how's she going to prove that, I'm Arya Stark?
Yeah, you need someone who knew her from before.
And they're all dead. And the few lords...
Like Littlefinger would know.
Littlefinger would know, but he would lie.
Yeah, depending on what,
Depending on the reason. Many people would lie. The Umbers are gone. The Mormonts who have met her are gone. Would she know enough details to convince somebody who's never met her that she says she is?
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't. So
I
think have to have somebody who actually knew her.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of them are dead.
Yeah. Well, Jon Snow is up at Castle Black, but again, if the question was, can you identify this person? Can you confirm that she is who she says she is?
Right.
He could do that.
But they'd have to make a whole trip all the way up there, and nobody even thinks of the wall.
Well, we are so off track right now. Let's not even go there, because we are speculating about things that might have happened differently 3 seasons ago.
I know. Isn't it great? All right, where are we now?
Short born, Jamie can't row. Yeah.
Well, and I love that there's the return to that later too, when they kill the soldiers, and it's like, got to dig the graves, and he's like, golden hand, it's only good for stopping swords.
Good. Twice as long as you think it is. So when we found out Jamie's also a bit of an idiot, thinking he can just give gold to fishermen or whatever and not get reported.
Yeah. Because Bronn just points out the obvious, which is if he promises to keep your secret, he gets gold, and then he also gets gold again when he really tells somebody.
Right? You're not going to be there to.
Yeah, like how would you ever even find out if he did it or not, if he keeps your secret or not?
And that's thinking like a sellsword.
Yeah. Well, and it's just again highlights Bronn's whole position, which is like, I understand why you would send me,
Right.
but why not send 10 of me instead of you?
And then, yeah, so how many can you take? One, if he's slow. And Bronn just goes into Ginsu Warrior and delivers a slow one.
He's like, that one looks slow. I love that.
What I want to, before we get quite there, there was the bit that I mentioned earlier, which is they're talking about ways to die, and Jaime says, in the arms of the woman I love, but like even as he says it, you sort of feel like, is his heart really in that? It almost feels like that's what he's supposed to say, but then Bronn just even kind of goes, do you think she feels the same way?
Right.
And Jaime's kind of like, oh.
Yeah, but does Jaime really feel the same way? Is he really talking about Cersei right now?
Who else would it be?
Well, I'm not saying it's someone else. I'm just saying, like,
future
no.
person.
Well, that's what I said, though, is that he says in the arms of the woman I love because he feels like that's what he's supposed to say, but he doesn't even say it with any real enthusiasm.
No.
That was my point.
Okay.
I don't think he's talking about someone else. I think he was saying it because that's been his answer in his head for a long time, and he's really only saying it out loud for the first time in a while, and he's not sure if he really does feel it the same way. And then when Bronn points it out, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't even know, like.
Who knows? Yeah. I do think, though, that Jaime's not so much in love with Cersei, and I do think that there's somebody else in his mind. Whether he's willing to admit it or not, I think he genuinely cares, although I don't think he would like to die in her arms. I think he'd like to die fighting at her side.
I get that, but I feel like there's not been any other clue that he's still thinking of her. You know what I mean? Like it might be true, but we've not really been given. Well, I guess that it's
just on the island.
We did get the reference to so I suppose there was that, but I sort of feel like that seems like a stretch to assume that Brienne was even on his mind in that conversation.
Oh, I don't think that she was present in his mind. I think that she's in the back of his mind constantly. Like that's what I feel like is going on. Even in the books, he's not conscious of any feelings, but I think that they're there.
There's some spots in the books where he specifically thinks about it.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. I don't want to get too into that, but at this point, yeah, I don't think that, well. Anyway.
But yeah, so I feel like all of that is really reading more into it than what was there. But the other thing is we have to just remember too that the show is treating this different than the books, and so it's not some of this stuff that's going unsaid. It's easy for book readers to jump to the wrong conclusion, I think, or possibly wrong, because we have to remember, like, where things have been left with them is they do seem to be continuing their relationship at this point, except that she's mad about Tyrion now, and so this mission is like the price of getting back in her pants / good graces.
So it seems like.
I guess. I thought this mission for him was punishment to himself.
Well, maybe that's why he's going, but that was her deal. Well, and I think that's kind of all of these conversations with Bronn. That's what that's all about, is that Bronn is forcing him to actually think about why he really is doing it instead of the sort of stock answer that comes first to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ron's always got the greatest answers. An exciting life, I want a boring death.
Bronn is such a great character.
Yep. I'm glad he's sticking around because he was kind of mostly off page by this point in the books.
Yeah, I'm actually very happy with the changes that they've made to Braun in the show. Because really, this is a lot more interesting than Jamie making the trip with Sir Ilan Payne, who can't talk.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also not even where he goes.
Well, yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying because Braun was his instructor, so that's who he goes to. And in the books, his instructor was Sir Ilan, who would never have left anyway. But it's all I can think of is the cut off tongue and the and he laughs at him.
So are we ready to talk about sand snakes?
Yeah, so we meet some women. Nobody calls them sand snakes, but it was my assumption.
Well, Ilaria called them the sand snakes in the other episode where she's talking to Prince Doran and she says, the sand snakes are with me.
Right. Yeah, so that was my assumption, but...
I love the casting.
Yeah, I think they're great, and it seems like we're probably simplifying it now. There's what, 7 or 8 of them in the book, but just 3 I think is probably more manageable here. And so we definitely got Obara and Nim by name, and the other one I think is supposed to be Tyene, but I don't know if they said her name in the episode.
What was her name? I thought they said it.
I read something that said it was Tyene, but I don't.
That's who it is.
But I couldn't remember. When I rewatched it, I was trying to listen, and I don't remember them saying. They say Obara and Nim like twice, and then Tyene is the one that calls Ilaria mom.
Yeah.
But
the one that's hugging her and dressed like Gabrielle from late seasons of Xena.
The one that's not doing fancy weapon stuff. Whips and spears. I thought they were pretty great. They did not disappoint, even though it was only a brief scene of introducing them really this time.
They didn't look like girls in leather bikinis. I mean, even though the daughter of Ilaria was definitely showing a lot of skin, to me it didn't feel like, chainmail bikini style. It definitely felt more realistic, especially considering the heat they're under. I really like that they included the story about Oberon having the one daughter choose her weapon, spear or tears. I thought that was very good. I always like that story.
I think it's interesting. Chooch, when they talk about they want to start a war and they have to use Myrcella, what do you think they have in mind?
I think they're going to kill her to enrage Cersei and force their hand.
It's interesting because it was more like what their plan Myrcella was in the books was we know it right away, and I wonder if it's the same because they're changing a lot of elements of it, and so the fact that they don't say it explicitly, I don't know if that means something or if I'm just reading into it.
I don't think it's the same as the books.
Illyria told Duran I would send her piece by piece back to King's.
But it also just makes me specifically think about the exchange last season, and maybe this is just something that they're not really dealing with, and I'm reading too much into it. There's a whole bit about Cersei asking Oberyn, like, are you going to hurt Myrcella? And he's like, in Dorne we do not hurt little girls. And she's like, everywhere they hurt little girls.
Yeah.
And
Duran doubled, said, we don't do that here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Duran definitely agrees with that one.
But it's clear she's not having any of it, and it's not her policy when it's the one she loves who got wrongfully killed in her mind.
Well, and I think it's important to note that there is a difference between a man saying we don't hurt little girls or we're going to hurt a little girl, and a woman saying it. Because, and especially in the Dornish society, because having lived the life of a woman, I feel like it's being a woman, especially a strong woman, you feel like, well, they don't need as much protection as men seem to think that they do, and that might be playing in there. I don't know, and
I don't mean to imply that the characters seem as though they would be completely philosophically opposed and it would be unthinkable to do it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is really just more mercenary in the sense of they made a point about it in the show.
Yeah. No, I know.
So maybe they're going to do something with that is all I'm saying, as opposed to just the question of would they be willing to. So I wonder if they're going to revisit the fact that they specifically had that conversation is what I mean.
I think going totally wild card has nothing to do with the Dorne government or anything because she was a paramour anyway. She doesn't hold an office.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think she's going wild card and she just wants vengeance and that's it. And has nothing to do with the governments or...
Yeah. Well, and the thing is as we're seeing more and more this season, the books are increasingly less useful as a predictor of what might happen.
Yep.
There's another thing this episode that seems different.
Yeah, we'll get there. Show lost 2 points for that, by the way.
We finished talking about the sand snakes, or?
Yeah. I think I am, and yeah. So and then we already talked about Tyrion and.
Well, a little bit. I guess I didn't have a lot more to say. We definitely get confirmation that he's taking Tyrion to Dany, not to Cersei. I think we all suspected that, those of us who didn't already, know. In fact, actually, I mean, I think we talked about this last time. It's like when I read in the books, it really honestly didn't even cross my mind that it wouldn't be Dany. Like, it didn't even occur to me that it was ambiguous.
And it didn't occur to me until you said it when we recorded.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, my note here was just, we learned that Jorah is taking Tyrion to Dany and that Tyrion still has a big mouth.
I love how he's singing through his gag.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so Tyrion.
Yeah. Well, and I like that Tyrion, first of all, like when he hears what's happening, he's just kind of like, I'm not going to fight you, dude. That's where I was trying to go, so why not untie me? No? Okay, well then, prepare to be mocked, because you're doing some pretty mock-worthy things.
Tyrion is just, it's so great to see him in this scene, because he's just so Tyrion.
Yeah.
And I like the bit about how he can't sleep without wine, and then he ends up asleep at the end.
Well, I liked that Jorah specifically lets go of the rudder, stands up, walks across the boat without a word, just to backhand Tyrion, and then goes back to sitting at the rudder again.
Yep. Oh, it's so
It's
good.
not when his bubble burst.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well,
I think he'd be lying, and that wasn't where he was going, blah, 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 but he's, poking holes in his little fantasy.
Jorah has always been one of these characters that, like, almost more than anyone except early season Sansa, has this idea that somehow the world is supposed to work like a fairy tale.
Yep.
And he's constantly frustrated and disappointed that it doesn't, especially when half the time it's his own dumbass fault that it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how much I think we did get a scene of him telling the story of how he came to end up selling slaves, about how he got an expensive wife, so to speak. But again, it's this element of, like, he's not blameless in how things turn out for him. So, but he's definitely an interesting, complex character, because he keeps trying to somehow recapture the magic. Like, if somehow he can just do just the right thing, it'll all click back into place.
I feel like he is such the stereotype of the friend-zoned nice guy. It's like, well, if I give her an enemy, then she'll have to trust me again. She'll have to like me, and and it's like, oh, Jorah, you dum-dum. That's
See,
not how it works.
I'm
She's not gonna forgive you for losing her kid.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just reluctant. I don't like the trope of the friend-zoned nice guy. I feel like I don't like that idea. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
And so I don't like thinking of him that way, and I don't really think it's. I mean, I'm not criticizing because you're certainly not the only person to describe him that way, and it's not altogether inappropriate or anything. It makes sense, but I just sort of feel like a little bit like there's more romantic stuff in there than say Brienne and Renly. But at the same time, I feel like he had resigned himself to this idea that he wanted to serve her whether or not there ever was anything more. Like, it's not that he wouldn't want something more, but he doesn't need it. And so it's always kind of like there that if she offered, he would take it. But I don't think he was planning to ever give her any kind of an ultimatum.
I don't think he would ever give her an ultimatum, but he's definitely overstepped his bounds a few times and thought that he was more important emotionally to her. I mean, there have been a few times where he's like, Daenerys, and she's like, you'll call me Khaleesi, and she's had to tell him that you're overstepping your bounds a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't like the whole cultural concept of the friend zone. I don't like it. I think it oversimplifies complex relationships.
I agree. And one of the reasons why I brought it up is because what I don't like about it is that some people, they buy into it and they think that it's a series of checks in the right column, and if I get enough checks in this column, then I'll level up and I'll earn this girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, with completely removing the person from the equation and thinking about their feelings, which is why I bring it up here, because, dude, how is she going to be able to forget your actions and how she was almost killed? Her child she was pregnant and she was about to be poisoned, and you were in on this.
See, I almost feel like I don't necessarily think that stuff is unforgivable, necessarily, because it's what he did before, and like he should. I'm not saying it's like it's nothing, but I'm just saying it's like Barristan served her enemy. Yeah. And her brother's enemies. And, I just mean, it's like, I think that it could theoretically be forgiven if he was actually dealing with it, right?
Right, exactly.
But
instead
he's
of
not.
Thinking, I'll just kidnap this guy. If he raised an army, if he brought her a whole armada of ships so that she could go to Westeros, if he did something that would actually help her cause and prove that he is fighting back to earn her trust, that would be one thing. But thinking, I'm going to show up with one of your enemies bound and gagged, that'll make you care about me again. It's not enough. Like, he's not thinking about what he has to do to earn her trust back. And he's not thinking about how can I prove to her that I would never betray her like that and that she's important, and what does she really want? And that's what he's not thinking about, which is why I brought up the comparison, because he's just, like you said, he's not confronting it head on. I mean, he's still thinking, well, I had to sell slaves because I had an expensive wife, and, well, Ned Stark was being unreasonable. If I just sent them to the wall, then I'd have nothing, And it's like, dude, no, these are your choices. You have to live with the consequences.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's like... It is to an extent what Jorah is doing, but it's also like the element that I don't like about it, that it sometimes shows up as a trope in some of these stories, and I think it's absolutely something that some guys buy into as something that's how real life works, which is that like women are not like a vending machine that you put affection coins into.
Yes, exactly. I agree wholeheartedly. That is my whole point. Yes,
Yeah.
women are not vending machines. We don't take affection coins. Neither are men, you know, and it works both ways. That's one thing I want to make very clear.
Yeah.
It works both ways. You know, you have to see a person as a person, not a vending machine.
Anyway, we're also off track, except in that just we are, I think, agreed that Jorah's whole plan is based on this fantasy that somehow it's all just going to click back into place and be like it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tyrion rightly points out, it's like, you think she's going to pardon you and execute me? It's just as likely to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Insane doesn't want to burst his little bubble.
Especially because Tyrion has so much knowledge about dragons.
That's book, though. We've not.
In the show, first season Game of Thrones, he's telling Jon what his favorite topics are and why he reads so many books.
He talks about reading a lot of books, but does he actually say anything about reading about dragons? I don't remember that.
What he was reading was about dragons.
I mean, I think that the show could absolutely sell us that he knows about dragons because he reads so much. I just don't feel like they actually said so.
Sorry, I got distracted by Sheriff Bullock's joke.
I'm fairly certain there are female vending machines in Japan.
I thought he was reading a book about dragons. I could look that up and see. I may be wrong.
Well,
but he's very knowledgeable about all things. You know, he's read all of the old maesters' journals, and he's read about all of the big kings.
Right. I'm not saying he's not well read. I just mean let's not overstate the point and imply that like he's a dragon expert.
No, I would never say that.
Yeah.
But then
I don't think it's ever been implied anywhere that would be what he's there to help with.
No, I don't think that's why he's there. I'm just thinking, you know, what does he have to offer other than...
Honestly, one of the things that I feel like is a ball dropped both in the show and in the books is that surely there are dragon experts, at least just as researchers. Why does Dany not seek some out? And say, hey, you know, it's like, anyone know how to tame a dragon? Maybe somebody wrote a book about it back when they used to actually do this.
True.
Like, why does that never come up? It doesn't come up in the books either. It's weird.
I know she asks Viserys about them, but, you know, he's like, you know, he talks about the skulls, and that's it.
Well, it's all in the abstract, too, because that she doesn't actually have them yet.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think, you know, there was a while when they were still little where she thought she didn't have to train them. They were just going to always do what she said.
Yeah. Until one of them snapped at her. That's such a good
We head into Marine. We get a lot more Rhaegar backstory this episode.
Yeah. There's interesting, just like, you know, Rhaegar and Lyanna and Ned all just got like out of nowhere mentions.
Yep.
That's interesting.
It's almost like it's important what happened in the past.
Well, you know, it's something that comes up an awful lot more in the books is characters thinking about stuff that had happened in the past, and because obviously that's difficult to convey someone's internal monologue of thinking about something that happened 20 years ago in the show without doing flashbacks. It's just interesting that they haven't dealt with a lot of that stuff, and so a lot of these things we would have known a long time ago in the books just because a character would have thought about it. But you know, we having to get reminders of it, which makes, you know, since it's been so long, it makes me wonder if something's going to come of it, if there's going to be something relevant to happen. Otherwise, why bring it up again?
Yeah. Unless it's just Yeah, I don't know. Other than tying the families into the fabric of the history and
Mhm.
showing how, or re-emphasizing how far back.
Well, it can also, especially with Rhaegar, emphasize this idea that the way people are seen can be complex because there's this element of he chose a woman other than his wife and then, you know, debatably kidnapped and raped her. That was certainly the narrative from the Stark Baratheon side. But to be sure, he picked and gave flowers to a woman, not his wife. That definitely happened. But there's also this, and he was also renowned as a great fighter. I mean, like the whole thing in that particular tourney was that he beat Barristan Selmy. That was, you know, one of the things in that particular tournament. But then also Barristan coming out with this whole story of how he used to go out and sing to the people and then give the money away or get drunk with it and stuff. And just like it's this idea that historical figures are still multi-layered.
Mm-hmm.
So it might just be an element of that, of just reminding us it's important to not oversimplify who a person is.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and we got a little bit of that, I don't think it was last episode, but the episode before, the last time Barristan was talking about the Mad King, and he's like, oh, he was mad. You know, the stories are true, but there are other sides to him, and he did bring up some other sides.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah, it's like it didn't start that way, right?
Yeah.
It's like it started with him wanting to do justice. He just liked doing justice too much.
Yes, exactly. And this is just a really sweet scene between Barristan and Daenerys, and you can see this blossoming of a nice relationship as they're starting to put him into the refrigerator.
Oh,
I know. So I feel like this scene also is making us want to care more about him.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, like seriously, we're skipping ahead a little bit here. Did we lose Grey Worm and Barristan in the same episode? What the fuck?
I don't think we lost Grey Worm because he was still.
I will concede that they didn't definitively tell us that they were both dead, but they were both lying there unmoving in spreading pools of blood after both sustaining multiple serious, potentially mortal wounds.
I want at least for Grey Worm to be alive to tell the story of how Barristan went out so that people don't think he went out as a chump, because he went out awesomely.
Well, so at the so I don't know if they're both going to be dead. I feel like it may be that they're going to save, you know, like they could have either of them or even both potentially survive, but I feel like they also, the implication with that final shot was not, to me, cliffhanger. It was they have both sustained mortal wounds, and now here they are lying there unmoving in pools of blood.
Which I hate. And this episode loses 2 whole points for Barristan dying.
Yeah.
It does not happen in the books. There's a lot more for him to do in the books. And why did they shoehorn him into the story and really push him in there if he was just going to be killed off? And I don't understand why, and it drives me crazy. And this is where we have my news segment. The actor who plays Barristan Selmy, Ian McKinley, McEllinney. Anyway, he was interviewed, and basically he said, yeah, I kind of shot myself in the foot because I read the books, and when I found out that I only had 4 episodes this season, I said, hey, what's going on? Why do I only have 4 episodes? Am I being written out of the show? And the showrunners were kind of surprised that he realized what was happening. And they're like, yeah, no, we're writing you out. And he's like, but all these books, I'm still alive in the books. And he
I mean, they're I mean, he has not died in the books, but it's also like, you know, that storyline is up through first quarter of book 5 territory.
Yeah. So anyway, so he was very gallant about it. He said that he would have loved to have continued, but he was happy with the scenes that he got. He was very happy to have the scene with Daenerys in this episode, and he was very happy that his character had a really good death scene because he felt that that was right. His favorite scene to film of all time was when he told Joffrey, "Fuck you, I'm out of here." Which was awesome, and I'm sure everybody loved that scene. And he says his only regret is that he never got to meet or work with Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
So classy actor, went out very classy when we're all mad that he's dead.
Yeah, it's sad. And I mean, I think, Nutty, both you and I might partly be reacting like this simply because this is one of the first. Well, this is one of the first times that we're in the same boat as the non-book readers of like, but what?
In the books, we get point of view chapters from him. So once you're in someone's head, like, they really matter. And so, yeah, I was really blindsided. I did not know that that was happening.
Yeah.
I was not pleased.
So I mean, I
necessarily want to see him die, but
I'm not pleased. I'm upset that he's dead, but I'm not like mad at the show. I don't feel like the show did something wrong. It's just a sad thing to happen to a character I liked.
I'm upset because I feel like they really pushed him into the show only to take him out, and I don't really understand why they pushed him in. Like, he didn't have to come in as soon as he did. He could have shown up this last season and explained who Jorah was. Like, he didn't have to be there all that time up before then. And it just felt to me like they were going to do more with him.
I mean, I feel like the only reason they did that is because they got to keep the actor working, or else he's going to go off and do something else.
Yeah, but
maybe now Dany's going to have a slot in her roster, so maybe there will be a place for Jorah.
Maybe.
Well, I think it's a little bit like with Marjorie in the sense that she's now, she's losing some of her allies here. She's gonna need to make some decisions. What's going on here? Because I mean, the thing is, compared to Westeros, where sure you might have to fight some armies of people who they want to be on the Iron Throne for you to get to be on the Iron Throne, but it's not a situation where like almost everybody there would kind of wish you just go away. Like, even the former slaves at this point are like, they want her to give them the power to kill the masters and then go away.
Yeah. At this point.
Yeah. There's very few people who really want her to be there. So at a certain point, it's kind of like, well, so, it's one thing to say you need to practice ruling, but it's another thing to say, yeah, but is this where you want to rule? Dress for the job you want, not the job you want.
I like that too, because in the books she's wearing their clothes.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about it. She talks about she has to put on her floppy ears because it's not literally like ears, but it's just like when you're in the land of the rabbits, you have to wear floppy ears. So she has to wear this really fancy but super inconvenient dress that, like, the whole idea of the dress is that nobody who actually has to do anything for a living could ever wear this dress because it's just too impractical. And so, like, that's the whole point of it. You have to have
servants to wear the dress, and that's why it shows how important you are, because you need servants. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, so she's having to deal with that in the book. So, but again, it's that whole thing of like, there's a cultural barrier in Meereen that she wouldn't have in Westeros.
Yeah.
Well, we also jumped before the carnage.
Mm.
We had another discussion about reopening the fighting pits.
Yeah, he is not letting that go.
At least she told Dario, all right, yeah, you convinced me.
Well, I don't think she said he convinced her as much as she was just surprised that he didn't take her side.
Yeah.
I thought at the end of the conversation she said, okay, I'll open them. Or maybe that was just me writing my notes that I was convinced he changed her mind.
That was not my impression.
Maybe he changed your mind. In the books, he's got other people who are there with him, former fighters, who are basically begging her.
Saying, like, this is what I know how to do.
Yeah. They like, you are robbing me of my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And, things go differently. So it's, I kind of, again, I like the idea of having those people there, but I understand because it's TV, we simplify and cut everything down.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think they're also just, there's several elements of this that are slightly different, right?
And Dario took that place also.
The one thing about the Sons of the Harpy that I wish the show would hit a little bit harder because it's not clear is like, who are these guys who are wearing the mask, right? Because they are not the masters. Because those guys would not take up a sword and actually go out in the street and risk getting speared through the throat. These are the lower class but non-slave workers who are now out of a job because there's all of this unskilled labor competing now for their jobs. And they are getting paid by the masters to do it. But otherwise, they're just like the ordinary worker class of this city. And I mean, it's not like a big deal, but I feel like the show is kind of treating them just like they're generic, and it doesn't matter who they are. But I felt like that kind of mattered because it just sort of shows that like she's really got like every single class of the city pissed at her.
Yeah.
Well, and it shows that there's very different levels of class in the city. It's more than just the slaves and the masters.
Mm-hmm. That's also how there's so many of them, because we wouldn't have think of like the rich masters as why would they have 40 guys to go out there and risk their lives. Well, it's
the 1%.
Yeah. So just making it clear that it's like, like these guys in the masks are not the rich ones that used to have slaves. Mm-hmm. They're the ones getting paid by those people in ways that are not super easy to trace.
So the chick holding the guy's head and then pointing to where the Sons of the Harpy are, she's totally in on it, right?
Well, she was the same one who killed the Unsullied from the earlier episode this season.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, she's the same prostitute that killed the one guy.
Okay. Because like I'm watching. And they come in and they stab everyone, and other people are freaking out, and she's just standing there.
Oh yeah, so yes, absolutely, totally in on it. She is one. Okay. The first Unsullied that we saw get his throat slit when he went to the brothel. It was her that did it.
It was with her. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like I thought I didn't realize it was the same person, but that I thought was like really interesting to me.
I wouldn't have recognized her except that in the previously on they showed the clip of that and showed her face.
Yeah, you're right.
I missed that one.
I still missed it.
But yeah, I assume she.
Well, it's not super critical. I don't think. I mean, it's a detail that's interesting, but it's not.
But I think it's neat to show how you've got people involved in this plot who are not wearing gold masks.
Right.
Because they're wearing gold masks. That's not the only Sons of the Harpy. You've got many other collaborators.
Well, and that's the whole thing that makes this so hard. The whole thing of that they're wearing masks is like, how do you know who it is?
Exactly.
It's like you have someone who was just fighting you to the death, and then they run away, and you run around the corner, and now the mask is on the ground, and you're like, who was it? It's just a crowd now.
Yeah.
No.
It's like ninjas. Real ninjas. Well, because real ninjas really weren't guys running around in black pajamas. They were the servants. They were the help. They were people that you wouldn't normally look at and getting paid off to just do things, and that's why they were so scary. It was all good PR.
Want to give some ratings?
That was a tough one.
Yeah, I didn't really care for this episode overall.
No. Well, it lost 2 points for Barristan Selmy, and it lost another point partially because of the way that the militants were and the anti-homosexuality vibe, and just reminding me again that Loras is reduced to just being the gay knight, and he doesn't have his own character, and partially lost a point because of the whole seducing Jon Snow thing. But then it got a point because of the Stannis and Shireen scene, like that was so awesome, and it got some points because of Bronn and Jaime. That was pretty cool. But I think I'm gonna have to give this a 6 out of 10 hugging sand snakes.
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 scorpions under the bucket.
Oh, nice.
Nice, I like that. I'm giving it 5 out of
Ooh.
disappointed illegal downloaders, since this is
Yeah.
the new episode, and it was a snoozer, I think.
Yeah, it was not the best.
That
I was just so excited for the sand snakes. That was almost all of my...
yeah.
Well, and also realizing that, okay, Littlefinger does actually have a semi-reasonable plan.
Yes.
That is not just some labyrinthine thing that relies too much on coincidence.
And Chooch, I think, wins at the rating scale because that was awesome. Disappointed illegal downloaders,
Needed
yes.
a month, and aw.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike.
Well,
Mike,
wasn't this... I'm sorry.
The season and still no Bran.
Yeah.
The only
Well,
man.
I mean, we heard the rumor that he's just not in this season at all. I think that
Yep.
seems plausible.
This actually would have been the last episode that the illegal downloaders would have had. So they're sitting there with seeing Barristan Selmy die as the last thing that they got to see,
Yeah.
and they have to wait a month.
Well, and so given that article you read, it seems like confirmation that Barristan is dead, but it's not obvious to me that Grey Worm is okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because it seems to me like that last shot was meant to indicate that they're both dead. But I'll certainly acknowledge that it's not like I'm going to call bullshit if it turns out Grey Worm's okay.
I just hope he's alive long enough to tell the tale, you know? I want people to know that Selmy didn't go out like a chump and that Grey Worm also fought quite well. It was a good scene. I don't know.
Well, it's an upsetting episode.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, just like the whole the Faith militant, they're super creepy and we're supposed to be uncomfortable there. And then the Sons of the Harpy, that's upsetting for largely the same reason. And then we get at least one character that we like killed. It's upsetting. This is and like even like you were complaining about the Melisandre seducing John scene. Like I don't dislike that as a scene, but yeah, it's uncomfortable. I mean, I just feel like this episode is just loading us up on the stuff that's supposed to make us uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, do we want to talk about the title of next week's episode?
I don't remember what it is.
It's Kill the Boy, which is why I want to talk about it. It's normally, an episode title, I'm like, okay, so I might have an idea of what we're going to touch on, but Kill the Boy, well, first off, we already killed the boy that we all wanted to kill last season. Joffrey. So I'm like, wait, don't kill Tommen. I don't want Tommen dead. What do you mean by kill the boy? Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know what other boy there is, really. Well, I don't know, unless Rickon's going to show up again.
Oh, no killing Rickon.
I'm not on board with killing Rickon. I'm just trying to think of what other boy it could even be.
John's new steward.
Oh.
Ollie.
Ollie.
I think it was.
Or it could be somebody's going to tell.
Why did they name the little blonde kid with the bow and arrow Ollie? That's just weird. Do you think that's on purpose, or are they kicking themselves?
Am I missing something?
Oliver Queen in Arrow is Ollie.
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe nobody else cares.
But we got. He's no Oliver Queen. Let me just say that.
He's just a kid, though. He hasn't been to the island yet.
That's true. So Sheriff Bullock says in the chat, I am not feeling this season 6 out of 10. No, not Sir Barristan. No. Which is also quite a great reading system.
Yeah. That was my last note for the episode. But pretty much.
And we have our survey, which introduced characters. I think we just have the 3 sand snakes, right?
Yeah.
I'm kicking myself for changing my vote. I was going to vote 3 like I do every week, but no, I had to go and vote 1 like an idiot.
You know, I
was saying, "Who's Rickon?" Half the audience. It's been a while. What, season 3, right? That we sent him off.
I think so. Yeah.
Near the end of season 3, I think, because he was still traveling with Bran.
Even
until
when he was around, it was who's Rickon.
Well, it's like until like the very last episode he was in, he was the kid who says creepy things from the shadows.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rickon of the Corn.
Yeah. Mike McCauley says, could the reference to the boy be Arya no longer passing for a boy and being a woman from now on?
Oh, but that makes me, just saying Arya makes me think of the House of the Undying, and oh, that could be really creepy.
Well, the surveys, I only actually received 2.
Yeah, I didn't. I forgot.
I don't see Nutties. I have one from me and one from Patman.
You know what? I may have filled it out before you put the new one up. I voted 1, and I was wrong.
Well, Pat and I were both over. I said 4 and he said 5. So.
Oh, so I win.
Except that you didn't actually submit it right.
I submitted it. He just didn't have it up fast enough.
A likely story.
Well, I mean, technically, I still would have received.
See, as not having an actual received survey, you are actually tied with me. And I would agree, though, the answer is 3, even if we didn't actually get Tyeen's spoken name.
It's clear they're all going to be central, or
even if we didn't get their names, I would count them because they've been named the Sand Snake. So.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Are we almost done? I feel like I'm always the one that's in a hurry at the end, but tonight my back is kind of.
I think we've covered all the bases.
I think we have.
Yeah.
All right.
We are officially on the schedule for Balticon. Sunday night, 7 p.m. Things can change. The schedule is still subject to change, but you guys can come out, have fun at 7 p.m., hang out with us, and then later on come to our PG Holyfield Celebration of Life later on that evening at 10 p.m. and see you guys at Balticon.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
Yay, Balticon.
Oh, no, I lost my... Sorry.
You lost the outro?
Outro music.
My Hangout toolbox. I realized I had resized my window. All right, so we are all clear.
And next week's survey is going to be the same, named characters.
Yeah, we're going to roll with that, and we will
see
what happens and who actually submits. Maybe we'll retire it because we have not really had. We haven't had the full cast submit yet, so
yeah.
Fine.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure how to make that. I keep forgetting, and so I'm not sure what the way to make me remember better is.
Otherwise,
We'll start
there are
you on Twitter on Sunday.
Sorry. There
Go
are
ahead.
two memes on two new Game of Thrones memes from last week's episode that have been on the Game of Thrones meme roundup, which I have now made the Unbreakable Podrick Payne my cover photo on Facebook because I love it so much.
Yes.
It's great.
And the Shadows and Vorlon one is I've gotten a lot of feedback from some B5 fans. They all think it's priceless.
Excellent.
So.
All right. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. We will talk to you next week.
Hey, bye.
If you have feedback for the Beyond the Wall podcast, you can email us at btw@specficmedia.com. You can also leave us a comment on the website. Go to specficmedia.com where you'll find a shiny BTW button. That'll take you right to our page. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 Unported license. Feel free to share and remix. Just give us credit and don't charge money for it.